Hello everyone and welcome to Shownanigans. I am Tube,
And I'm Doob.
also known as
Deva.
and Trash. Just a quick
Okay.
just
Did your name change?
no, it was always Trash. Just a quick
Uh-huh.
content warning before we get into things. This episode does contain mention of abusive relationships. So if you do not like that, or if that is something that makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to listen to this episode. You can listen to one of our older episodes or wait for the next one to come out. That's it, I think. That's the only thing. All right.
Yeah.
And so, Doop, if you were to
Yeah.
summarize this episode, how would you do that with your words?
So this episode is about a woman that was found in the construction site. And basically she's frozen solid and she's just thawing away in there.
Oh my god, you know what? Like, this episode actually gave me the heebie-jeebies. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because I was eating or what, but it's like as soon as I saw her melting body, I like had like a gag reflex happen. I don't
Okay.
This is the first episode for that to like have that happen to me.
I saw her face and it looks like you know the mother from the Addams Family? It looks like her face.
You think it looks like Morticia? I thought she
Yeah.
looked like the woman from The Lady in the Water.
Oh.
Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen it.
It's about a lady
I
in
don't
some
remember
water.
exactly how her face was. Oh, is that it?
Yeah, she's a lady.
I'm
and
not
she's
sure
in
I
some
want to
water.
watch that.
It's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. I remember my film teacher in high school. You remember Mr. Wheaton, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he said that he really liked the movie. He thought that M. Night Shyamalan was getting like he wasn't getting the proper reviews he deserved, but I don't know. We watched it and I just thought it was all right. I thought it could have been much better.
His movies, like M. Night
M. Night Shyamalan?
and M. Night
He's
Shyamalan.
brown. Come on, you should know how to say it.
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. Yes.
Him. His movies itself are hit or miss.
Okay.
Like some of his movies are terrible and then other movies are really good. Like what's that movie? Like he made the Avatar one too.
Yeah.
And that one sucked.
Yeah.
And did he make The Sixth Sense as well?
Yeah, he did. That one was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Did you know he based that off of a Goosebumps episode though? I can't remember if it was Goosebumps or if it was Are You Afraid of the Dark, but one of them. It's Goosebumps.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's what I read. And it makes sense because if you watch the Goosebumps episode, it's like exactly the same almost.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like I have.
The
now that
Goosebumps
you're
one?
mentioning
It's
it.
the one with the ghost that plays the piano. We are so off topic.
Holy. Okay, back to topic.
Fully. Okay, so the first thing, when we see the body, like the body is in it's like on the roof, or like I can't tell if it's like a roof or like the floor of a construction site. Like they're building a building, right?
Yeah.
And all you hear is like the world's saddest song. Like I'm eating and like I have to throw up because like I saw the body, like I gagged, but then the sad song came on and I was starting to cry and I was like, I don't understand my feelings.
It's such a depressing, sad song,
Mama,
but it sounds so good.
From the seat of your head.
Yeah. In the end, it was like, Mama say this hurting will end.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my god,
It's like so emotional.
I have to throw up, but I'm very sad. That song is called "The Beggar's Prayer" by Torini. Torini. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I liked it.
The first thing is that we see Kate like immediately being woken up at 5 a.m. and no one wants to be woken up that early, but she's like, it's like beep beep beep, and she wakes up, she's like, oh my god.
And then she goes to the construction site.
Oh no,
I feel like
before that, like she opens, but like she's getting ready and we see her open up a box, and on the top of the box is like a picture of this man and this woman, and inside is like a ring and a watch, and those are kind of important for this episode because this episode is mostly it's Kate Beckett backstory basically, which is good because I was like waiting for like more character stuff, more character stories. Like we've only seen like kind of snippets of Castle, and like because we've seen it through his arguments with his mom and stuff, like the type of man he is, but we haven't seen too much about Kate, so like that's the first thing. And then
It's just like her cop exterior, and you don't really know much beyond that. But in the first episode, you kind of know that something is coming because of Castle's interaction with her and what he says about like her backstory. So you know that something is like there's more beyond her character, but you don't know what it is. And this is actually the first episode since then to kind of get a glimpse of her backstory. So then she receives a call for murder, and she I feel like every time she receives calls, it's like I imagine what the conversation is on the other end, because she just says, "Hi, Beckett."
Yeah, Beckett.
Okay, got it. Be there, right? I imagine on the other end someone being like, "Hi, Beckett. Murder, 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 murder."
That's exactly what police calls sound like. Like you just answer the phone, you'd be like, "Doob," and they'd be like, "It is murder, 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 murder," and you'd be like, "Yep, got it."
And she just like processes it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll be right there."
Oh right, yeah, I am cop. I go do fix murder. Yes, me.
So she arrives at the crime scene and talks to yeah. And she talks to Esposito, who's already there. And then as she's speaking to him, she sees Castle in the background. She's like, "What the heck? Like, when did he get here? Why is he earlier than me? Why is he here earlier than me?" And they were starting to like well, Castle was already there, and he was like really excited about being there.
He's like, "You gotta see this. You're gonna love it."
Yeah,
like a little
you
kid.
can tell. Yeah, you can tell like he has like I don't know, he's starting to kind of grow a passion for these cases and stuff. It's almost like he's on the team and he like really likes his job. But yeah, then I think they reference like they have a little reference to Wizard of Oz too,
because they go into the building and Lainey's up in the rafters looking at the body, trying to figure out what's going on, and then Kate says, "Oh, she's melting because the body is starting to thaw." And
Castle goes, "Maybe we should be looking for ruby slippers."
And then Kate says, "Yeah, while you're at it, why don't you look for some flying monkeys? Maybe they left her here." And Castle's like, "Okay, you got me. I'll shut up."
It's like, this is where I don't say anything.
This is where I shut my big fat Castle face. And so Lainey says that the woman is frozen, but it's not because of exposure or anything like that. Like, she wasn't just left there. She was frozen before and then brought there.
Yeah. Lainey also cut her hair, and it looks very nice.
Oh, yeah, she did. Did she? Was it longer?
Yeah.
I was wondering what she did. It like, it looked different. It's nice.
It was like,
why
it was
didn't
like
anybody compliment her?
I know. Maybe they did in between the cases. I don't know.
In between the cases.
I don't know. Something that we don't see.
They should have just done it now, like while she was examining the dead body. Like, "Hey, Lainey's at a dead body. By the way, nice hair."
Looking fine.
Look at you looking fine, girl. Is that a new hairstyle to go with your new dead body?
Oh my god. I like that.
So yes. Castle and Kate are kind of talking about the body, and Castle says it's weird that somebody would freeze a body and then dump it, because it's like you have two personality types of things happening there. Somebody who freezes a body wants to keep it, but somebody who dumps the body like wants to get rid of it, right? So like, what's happening here?
But because it was moved from one place to another, they just say that they wanted to get rid of the body.
Probably get rid of the body.
Would be the best option, yeah.
So Kate says that she wants to run this person through missing persons, and Castle's all excited because he's like, "Oh, missing persons, is there going to be like a computer database that we match her face to?" But it's not. Kate's like, "Oh yeah, Castle, definitely." And then they get back to...
He thinks it's like on a computer and they scan and whatnot, and then like typing, and then it'll be like, "Yeah, match found. This is the person."
Like it's Tinder. Dead people Tinder.
Oh yeah. That's too much. I don't want that Tinder. Anyways.
Okay. So they go back to the precinct, and then Kate just slams down a huge file of like missing person cases, and it's Castle's like, "We have to go through it by hand," and it's like, "Yeah, you have to go through every single missing person file to see who she could be."
Yep.
And then Castle says like, "Wow, there are a lot of missing people," and it's like, yeah, of course there are. Like, people go missing all the time.
Yeah, and they were talking about like the case itself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kate asked Castle for what his like theory would be for this case because he
Mm-hmm.
started talking about, I don't know how he like brought it up, but he has his ways. He was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, 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 oh, what if this happened? What if that happened? And then
Oh, it's because Esposito was talking. He was telling Castle about a case. Like he was saying, there's this missing person case where a girl and her boyfriend are leaving like a bar or something, and the girl
mm,
turns a corner, and her boyfriend's a bit behind her, and then when he turns the corner after her, she's gone. Like she's just disappeared into thin air, and he like there's no trace of her at all. And then Castle says there has to be a story. There has to be a
mm,
beginning. We know the end. There has to be a beginning, and that's like a theme in the episode. It comes up again and
yeah.
then Kevin says something. No, it could be aliens. Aliens probably got her or something like that. And Castle says, no. Just I can write this the rest of this. And then Kate says she's not a story. She's like an actual missing person. And that's when Castle says that no, I can like figure it out.
Mm. Have you realized? I don't know if it's just me, but
Mm.
the way that Castle acts, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it kind of similar to Martin Mystery?
Is it? You know, I haven't watched Martin Mystery in a long time.
Because Martin Mystery is a playboy and
Oh
he solves
yeah.
cases
Mm-hmm.
and he looks for beyond like out he thinks outside the box as well, same as Castle, and
Mm-hmm.
he's very thorough with his analysis as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he acts like a complete goof.
But he acts like a complete.
He does though.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I love Martin Mystery and I love Castle, but I just like I don't know. I think when he said flying monkeys aside,
Mm-hmm.
and then when he started talking, that's when like I was like, oh my gosh, Martin would actually say that.
So what you're saying is somebody saw an episode of Martin Mystery and was like, Castle, I'm gonna write Castle and pitch that, basically.
Yeah, maybe could be.
So Castle says he knows how the story ends, and then he asks, but how did the body get there? And Kevin, like he says, she was probably frozen and kept close. And Castle is like, not necessarily, because it takes a long time for a frozen body to thaw. And he knows this because he thawed and defrosted a turkey.
Yeah, good job, Castle. That's
He's
one and the
like,
same.
she's a person, Castle, not a turkey. And he's like, I'm just saying.
Well, in a way, like I mean, it's still
It
yeah.
makes sense
Person
because
is
if it takes all night to defrost a turkey, how long it takes a long time for a body to thaw then.
yeah, because they're much heavier creatures.
Did you just
And they're
what did
bigger.
you say? Who's the heavier creature, the human or the turkey?
The human
Why'd you call the human a creature?
creature.
Like it's an
It can be creature.
like it's
too.
Slender Man or something.
If we're talking about turkey and human being one like under the same umbrella, I would call them creatures.
Fine, Doob, whatever you say.
Mm-hmm.
Doob, the biology expert.
Mm-hmm. I took biology and I aced it.
You took biology in high school. We are 28 now.
I took biology in university too, and that was, I mean,
Fine.
I didn't want to take it, but I still aced it.
Fine. Fine. So right after that, Beckett gets a call from Lainey because she has an ID on the body. And then like Castle leaves Esposito and Kevin with the files. And Esposito gets up and he's like, good luck, Kevin. And he leaves him with all of the files.
Oh my god. I feel sorry for Kevin sometimes. He doesn't get much screen time as well. And he's just like in the background usually doing other things.
Because
and
he's a
then,
Kevin.
is it because of his name? Like
Because he's
they
Kevin.
pay him less. They put him in the back to do the dirty work just because of his name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they call Esposito to the front.
Exactly.
Oh boy, poor Kevin.
Poor Kevin, I guess. So they're in the morgue with Lainey, Castle, and Kate, and Lainey says that the body is named, or the person, the woman, not just the body, but the person, woman, named Melanie Kavanaugh, and she was killed by blunt force trauma. And
Yes.
Kate says, well, how were you able to like ID her? And she's like, well, she's in the system.
Yeah. So she ran her fingerprints and it came up. And when they run the fingerprints, it's usually for people who are only in the database for certain things like
for a
legal
crime, yeah.
activities or crime or whatever it is, right? So for her, it was because of drug possession, because she dealt with drugs a lot, and that's kind of like part of her
backstory.
Her backstory, yeah. It's also kind of her downfall too.
And then Lainey says that because of the lack of frost and like the tissue degeneration, wherever she was stored, the temperature didn't vary. And Castle says, oh, like a freezer. And Lainey says, yeah, a freezer would do the job. And then Kate says, well, how long has she been dead? And then Lainey says, well, considering how long she's been like this, probably she was frozen within 24 hours of being killed. And then Kate says, well, what do you mean by how long she's been like this? And then Lainey says, according to the records I pulled, Melanie's been missing for like 5 years.
5 years. And then it was like, dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
And then we go to the next scene, and Castle and Kate Kate's going through the file trying to learn more about Melanie. And Castle's already gone through the file already. So he's like explaining everything to Kate. And Kate's like, how do you know about this? And he's like, I read it when you went to the little girl's room. And she's like, Castle, what do you mean? He's like, I can speed read. I learned it from my time of being stranded in the New York Public Library. And that's so sad. He must have had like a really troubled childhood if he was just like left alone in the library by himself as a kid.
Yeah. But you can tell also, like, he was kind of born with that talent. When he was young, he goes and he reads in the library and stuff, and that's how he spent his days. And then he becomes a writer. It's like almost like a smooth path for him, like a direct path for him. Because a lot of people, I find, like when they're young, they want to do other things and then they somehow end up somewhere else completely different. Like me, for example, like when I was young, I wanted to be either a teacher or a detective, which relates to Castle. But in the end, I was like working at Starbucks, I was doing photography, and here I am as a banker. So like, what the heck happened all the way through?
I wanted to be a rabbit.
I'm sorry to tell you, but that's not an occupation.
What do you mean? I could have been a stripper rabbit, but here I am working at a library.
Big dreams, too. Big dreams.
Big. I've always dreamt big. So Kate goes through Mel's file, and she's had a troubled childhood. She's had drug abuse. And Castle is also saying that she's married to somebody called Samuel Kavanaugh, and they have 2 kids. And Castle also says to her, can I give you the Cliff Notes or the Castle Notes, as I like to call them? And it's like, wah, wah, wah. And he says a little bit more. He says, when Mel disappeared, her husband waited all day before he called the cops. And he did that because Mel was what you call a runaway bride. She ran away 2 weeks before their wedding, and then disappeared like 3 or 4 times during the marriage. And then she'd like always come back. And because like she was always running away and stuff, the husband probably figured like, oh, she just ran away again. And then he says, some people love the institution, hate the day-to-day. And then Kate is like, are you one of those people? And Castle gets really close to her, and he's like, guess I haven't met the right girl. And then there's like sexual tension.
Yeah, you can see it in Kate's eyes. You can see it in Castle's eyes.
And she's just like,
Castle is just like, hey.
And then Kate turns away. She's like, So, and then Castle continues on, and he's like, so because she had run away before, the detective on the case just closed the file because he figured, oh, she's just run away. Yeah.
Then they go to see Samuel Kavanaugh.
Her husband.
I can't remember, though, what happens at this part.
They go to see him, and like this guy opens the door, and it's like another example in the episode of like a small character who has a lot of character in them, you know what I mean? Like they're memorable. It's like a short Jewish guy, and I mention he's Jewish because it's very obvious. He has the accent and everything, and he's really playing it up. Just like how the other woman in the other episode where the rich kid dies, I can't remember the name, Homeboy Hedge Fund, the woman who was in it for like a 5 seconds, she was like
I can tell that she was Italian.
Yeah, she was very Italian. So yeah.
Yes. So he was like very Jewish. His name was Roger. And they were asking him like, are you Samuel Kavanaugh? And he was like, no, my name is Roger.
My name is Roger.
And he was like, I don't know who Samuel Kavanaugh is, and da, da.
Sam, Roger says, like, well, they ask him, do you know Samuel Kavanaugh? And he's like, no,
Yeah.
like, what's this about? And it's like, how long have you lived here? Well, like 8 months.
Yeah.
Castle says, well, it's been 5 years, he could have moved. And then Roger says, well, I hate to break it to you, but the guy who...
Like, if you're looking for the guy before me, then he didn't move, he died.
He was murdered.
Yeah. Then they go to Melanie's parents' house.
Well, first they go back to the precinct, and they're going over the file because they want to know, like, what happened to Sam, like, because he was shot, like, outside of a grocery store, and then he was robbed. They thought it was a robbery. Yeah. Castle thinks that both of the murders are connected, like Mel, so the person who killed Mel killed Sam. And then Kate's like, where do you get all this crap from? Castle says, give me 250 pages and I can write out, like, this whole murder. Like, I can write it out for you how it happened. I can make it up. And he's like, I call it A Chill Runs Through Her Veins, which is almost the title of this episode.
Yeah.
Because the episode is called A Chill Goes Through Her Veins.
Yeah.
Then they ask, like, where are the kids? Like, where are the kids right now? And Esposito says, oh, they live in White Plains. And then Esposito also says, I'm going to go question the homeless in the area. I'm going to, like, where her body was found, because I want to see if anybody has any information, like, if anybody saw anything, basically. And then so Esposito goes to question the homeless, and Castle and Kate go to White Plains to see her parents.
So they come to Kate and Beckett.
That's almost correct.
Beckett and Castle go to Melanie's parents' house, and they arrive at the house and they see this, like, old man playing with the two kids.
And he has a limp.
Yes, he has a limp. They see him and he's, like, really, like, happy, and you can tell, like, he's very good with kids as well. I guess it's Melanie's dad, basically.
Mr. Davidson.
Mr. Davidson, yeah. So they ask him to come inside the house if we could come in and we can talk. And that's when they started, like, asking him, and also the mother is also there, about the case and how did your daughter go missing, like, is there anything that you think was weird before she went missing, and stuff like that.
Castle's like, obviously she's a drug user and things like that, and it's obviously making the Mr. Davidson really angry. Like, he's getting riled up. Like, his wife kind of has to calm him down a little bit. Like, both of them are quite angry with the way the case went, because they think it's obvious that Sam must have done something to his wife because he waited a whole day. And Castle says, oh, well, you know, she was a drug user. She's run away before. And Mr. Davidson says, look, Mel wasn't the greatest wife. She wasn't the greatest mother, but she wouldn't leave those kids alone. She would always come back.
She loved the kids.
She loved the kids. Something has happened here. And he gets really riled up. He's like, you know what? All of these questions are the same questions that they asked me 5 years ago. And all what you're doing now, they should have done it back then. Nobody helped her then. Like, the detective on the case didn't help her. Why bringing it all back up again is just ruining things again, you know? It's just bringing back memories.
Yeah, he was very uncomfortable, and he got really, like, angry and emotional at that time. And he was like, they didn't look for, like, they didn't care to see any details beyond the fact that she was, like, a drug user, and that was pretty much it.
They saw she was a drug user, and then that's what they decided to label her as.
Yeah.
Like, she just ran away to go use drugs, basically.
Yeah.
So Kate and Castle leave, and Castle says, oh, it's obvious, like, they're not happy with
how the case was handled.
And then Kate says, yeah, well, I agree with them. Like, from where I stand, it was handled really terribly. Like, the officer who dealt with it, she mentions again and again that they just take the things at face value, and they just put the person in a box. They just look at things like how they are. They don't look anywhere past that. It can't be anything else, basically, to them.
Yeah. And she goes, I hate cops like them. I hate them. Like that. So you can tell she kind of
she's dealt with something like that before.
She can relate to it.
So after that, they go see Detective Sloan.
Yes. They go to see the person that handled the case originally, which is Detective Sloan.
He's in New Jersey, and he's a sheriff now.
And he's a bit of a dick. Yes.
a bit of a
dick. He is just like, the way he was talking, he was like, yeah, this is what I had. Like, this is the information I had. These are the facts. Basically, like, I would imagine, like, when you are a detective, you would not just go based on whatever facts you had in front of you. You would go and see, like, you would try to see, like, more, and like, you would try to get more information.
He doesn't care. Like,
he really doesn't care.
Like, it's not just him, but like future characters in this episode, nobody cares. Nobody seems to care about this woman that she's died, and nobody wants to help her.
Yeah. They're just like, she's dead. Well, what can you do now?
Kate's like railing into him because he didn't go deeper into the investigation, and he wasn't looking past Melanie's history as a drug addict and who runs away sometimes. And then the detective says Sam let CSU into his house to investigate, so he had no reason to suspect the guy or doubt him. And then Kate and Castle says to Sloane, Sam was gunned down. And then Detective Sloane says Sam's friend Charlie Weiler reported that Mel was in Philly with her meth head ex-boyfriend. And then Kate's like, but you never even checked the reports out. Like, you never went down to Philly to actually check out if she was there. And then Castle also says Charlie isn't an impartial witness. Like, that's Sam's friend. And then Sloane is like, look, Charlie, he has a family. He has a business. He's a business owner. He's a war vet. So, like, of course I trust him. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Oh, Lord.
And then Castle says, yeah, and Philly is a long drive. So it's obvious that he's like making excuses. And then Sloane says, she was only missing back then. And then Kate says, no, Sheriff, she was already dead. You just didn't know it yet.
And it was like, boom, in your face.
Eat it. And it's like, I know you didn't have a body. You didn't have anything. But like, she's missing.
And it wasn't like for like a couple days. Like, she was missing for a while.
Yeah, and the only person you question is Sam's friend, and then you just go by his word, and then you don't even check it out because he's a war vet. Come on.
Like, seriously. Some people, I don't know, even in like relation to some like not strangers, like even with my job, like I see people not every day, but like every so often. And I'm like, really? Like, how do you believe in those things? Like, how do you like, I want to know how your brain works, because this does not make sense to me.
Yeah. So then Kate and Castle they're driving back to the precinct. And then Kate says, I hate cops like that. So Kate doesn't like cops like him because they try to make things fit in a box, and then that lets murderers go free.
Castle notices Kate's watch, and it's like big and manly, and he starts talking about it, and she was like, is that what happened to your dad? Kate doesn't really like answer him directly at that time.
The phone rings.
The phone rings, and she looks at her watch, and she's very uneasy. And then she picks up the call.
So they pick up the call, and it's Esposito and Kevin, and then they start going, like, they end up at a Kate and Beckett. I'm doing it now. Kate and Castle end up at a storage facility. So Esposito, what he did was he questioned the homeless people in the area, and they said that they saw a yellow truck. Like, they saw somebody who was very heavy set come out of a yellow truck that said storage on it. And then somebody, like a heavyset guy, came out and dumped the body. And so Kevin and Esposito searched the storage places in the area, and they found one that uses yellow trucks and is owned by what did I even write here? Albert Boland, Albert Belland, no idea.
One of those names.
He's
not important anyways.
He's important for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, he's basically the storage.
He is the dumbest man ever.
Oh my gosh. All of these people. I have no words.
This guy. Like, I hate the detective. I hate this guy, and I hate the other people they question also. Because Castle and Kate, they question Albert, and he's like playing dumb. And then Kate's like, a witness saw somebody driving a yellow truck dump the body, driving one of your trucks. And he's like, you're lying. Nobody saw. And Castle's like, maybe you should have tried denying it first.
Yeah. What an idiot.
I
mean, what an idiot, but it's good that he actually like let that out, because it's the truth.
So then he says, yeah, I dumped the body, but I didn't kill her. And Kate's like, yeah, you didn't kill her. And he's like, no, really. I found her in a storage unit. So what happened was the renters of that storage unit, they were in arrears because they hadn't paid for 3 months. So he went to check the unit because what they're supposed to do is they check it and then they sell whatever's inside for a profit. But when he went in, he only saw a freezer and it was plugged in. He's like, by the way, that's illegal. And she's like, you want to talk about illegal? And so he opens it and he finds the body in the garment bag because she was in like she was wrapped up in a bag or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh my God, I almost had a heart attack. And it's like, why didn't you report it to the police? And it's because he didn't want his business bad mouthed in the press. What the hell? So he dumps it. He just goes and dumps the body on a construction site. And then Kate, you can tell, is getting angry because she's like, Melanie Kavanaugh, mother of 2, wife of Sam Kavanaugh. Why didn't you call the police? What's wrong with you? Like, Castle actually has to step in and be like, hey, calm down a bit. It's okay.
Jeez.
So then they go to the storage unit and they find the freezer and they open it and there's like hair stuck inside, which was another gag moment.
Yeah, I mean, that was a gag moment for me, even though I was not eating or anything. I just looked at the screen and was like, ugh. Like, yeah.
So the person who rented the place made the payments in cash, and so they were 3 months they hadn't paid for 3 months, so that was 2 months after the husband is killed. So like, who's paying basically?
Yeah,
there's a jump scare.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
There's like Melanie's face appears and she's all frozen. She's like, and it's like,
oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I remember that. Wow.
I'm like, why'd you do that? What's the point?
Yeah, that's like her face, her dead body face.
Her dead body face. Oh my God. It just flashes on screen, her dead body face.
Yeah, in the beginning of the episode, and then now, like in the part of the episode, it's like. And I watched this twice. This episode I watched it twice, last week and then this week again. Just so I can recall the scenes and stuff, right? Yesterday when I watched it, it was like late at night and it was like 12 a.m. and I looked at it and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I live alone, so I'm like, oh my gosh.
You were like, oh my gosh.
Shudder. At least I have my cat.
Oh my God. And like the scene right after that is just Castle staring into his own freezer at his house.
Oh my gosh, that was like a little like cute part though. I liked it.
I know, but it was such a turn from the from the jump scare. It's just Castle staring into his freezer, and then Alexis comes over and she's like, we have air conditioning, right?
Yeah.
And then he asks Alexis, why would somebody put a dead body in a freezer? And Alexis says if she was putting a body in a freezer, it would be because she was trying to hide it. And then Castle says, until you stop paying for the storage space. And Alexis is like, did I stop or did somebody stop me?
I love Alexis so much. Like she's really smart. She's really smart. She's really pretty. She's like really, I don't know, like for her age, she has a lot of maturity,
I guess it's because she doesn't want to be like Castle.
She is pretty much the opposite of Castle.
She's the only like normal person in the house, so that's why she has to be sane for her for both Castle and his mom.
Yeah. I love her character though. She's really good. And sometimes I feel like the way that she analyzes cases, like her analysis on like based on what Castle tells her, is like really on point, and it always helps Castle out.
After that, they go and question Sam's best friend Charles Weiler, and Castle says, you said that she went to see an ex-boyfriend in Philadelphia, and Charles says, no, I only told Detective Sloan what Sam told me. And then Kate says that doesn't mean she actually went there, but then Weiler is like, that's where she'd always go before when she ran away. So he's painting Mel as being like an ungrateful drug addict wife who'd get high, come home, and yell at Sam. And then he's trying to paint Sam as like the good husband, basically. After that, Charles says that the person that she was going to see was called Kevin Henson. And Kevin is in jail for meth usage and went in just after the last payment was made on the storage unit. So that paints him as like the next suspect. So Castle and Kate go to see him. They go to Philly to see him in prison, basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also he was on the outside when Sam died, so it could have been him who did both of the murders, basically.
But he just mentioned though during the time that Sam was murdered, though he was in rehab still.
Yeah, Kevin says that. Kevin says that when they go to interview him. So they go to interview Kevin, and Kevin, like, the way he's coming off is like he really loved Mel, and he says that she loved him, but they couldn't be together because it wouldn't work because of the drug usage, basically.
Yeah.
And her parents wouldn't have liked her to be with him, so that's why she married Sam.
So they basically like had an affair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were planning to even like move away together and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But him, like, he wanted to do like better for her, like, because he was also like a huge like drug addict and everything. Like, I think he was in a worse state than her, right? So he wanted to fix himself basically first before he did everything with her, like before he committed to moving away with her and like starting a life together and stuff like that. Basically he felt like he didn't deserve her the way he was, so he wanted to improve on himself.
Yeah, that's why he goes to rehab.
Yeah, that's why he goes to rehab, and that's where he was at the time of the murder as well.
Yeah. So he goes to rehab, and he was getting calls from her at first, but then all of a sudden she stopped calling, so he assumed that she was dead.
And I think either Kate or Castle asked him as well at that time, why would you just assume that or something? And he said if she was alive, she would have called.
Like, there's no other answer.
So that kind of, because he was in rehab and stuff, it proves like he couldn't have killed Mel, and he couldn't have Castle and Kate were also saying like he was probably making the payments on the storage room, right? But it obviously couldn't have been him at this point.
Yeah, like he actually loved her, so he couldn't have killed her. And he was also in rehab at the time, so that basically eliminates the possibility of him being the suspect, like him being the murderer.
Oh, also Kevin mentions that she found out that Sam was having an affair.
Oh yeah.
He mentions that Sam was having an affair, and the reason she wanted to leave also was because she thought he was going to leave her and get custody of the kids because of the drugs. So that was another reason she was trying to leave with Kevin. It's just like, it was just really bad timing because he hadn't gotten clean yet, basically.
Yeah.
So then right after that, Castle and Kate are back in the car again, and she's questioning him, and she's like, hey, you speak guy. If you were having an affair, would you tell your best friend? And he says, yes, I would. They go back to Charles Weiler and they say to him, hey, Charles, you lied. You lied to me. You did know about the affair. Like, you did know like what was going on. And Charles is like, affair? What affair? There wasn't an affair.
Pulling like the stupid card. Like, what? Stupid. What are you talking about? I don't know. Yeah.
He says, why would I talk about it? It was such a long time ago. What's the point of dragging everybody's names through the mud? Haven't their kids been through enough? Don't they deserve some peace? And Kate says, what they deserve is to know what happened to their mother. And then he's like, fine. The person he was having an affair with, her name is Elizabeth Forte. So then they bring in Elizabeth Forte. She worked with Sam at his bank, and they had a 6-month affair. And she says she ended it because she realized she loved her husband. And then Castle, he's like, ugh. Look, people don't end affairs because they
love their husband.
Yeah, they don't end them because they love their husband. They end them because they're scared.
Scared of this, scared of that. What were you scared of? And he asks him that question.
He asks Elizabeth.
He asks her that question. And she said she was scared of him.
She was scared of Sam.
She was scared of Sam. Yeah.
She says because he started to ask her, like, what would she do if his wife wasn't in the picture anymore? And a few weeks after that, Melanie disappears. And then she had to break things off with him. And then she's like, I had to go get transferred and everything like that because he was getting kind of scary after, like, he was acting kind of scary after he broke things, after Melanie disappeared.
She acted like a freaking victim. Like
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, boo-hoo, like I had to get transferred because of this." And
Yeah.
there's like a poor dead woman.
And like even before that, like she didn't even want to talk about the affair or anything. Like she didn't want to get into it. And then Kate had to be like, how about I go digging around in your life? How about I start questioning your family and your friends? I go through all your records. I can make your life very hard for you. And it wasn't until then she was like, okay, fine, I'll tell you.
What a bitch.
You pause for a second. What an bitch.
I didn't want to say it, but what a bitch.
Can I say bitch on this podcast? Can I say bitch too?
No, she's so selfish. Like she
I know.
knew, like there's so many characters in this episode that actually could have like prevented all of this from happening. Like so many characters, but every single one of them are so selfish that they didn't want to. Yeah, they just don't care.
And then Kate's like, 5 years. 5 years, Mrs. Forte, and you never came forward. And Elizabeth is like, what's it matter if Sam killed Melanie? They're dead. He's dead. They're both dead. What's it matter anymore? Jeez. And it's like, what do you mean?
Like the families are like were still suffering, right? They didn't know who the killer was, and they every day they would just think about how she died. Like they don't think about like how it affects their families, especially, and they're just like, yeah, they're dead. That's it. Like let's move on with our lives. Let's not let it affect our own lives.
So then, right after that, she's at the murder board and she's looking at it, and she knows at this point that Sam did it, like based off of what Elizabeth said, it was probably Sam that did it, but she can't figure out how. Like it fits that Sam did it, but she has no evidence. And then we cut straight to like my favorite scene.
Laser tag.
It's Castle and Alexis playing laser tag,
and their outfits too, they're so bomb.
I know, it's like the top of the line laser equipment. I don't know why I keep saying razor, but laser tag equipment.
Yeah, I honestly, I this scene, like watching this scene, and even like their apartment and everything, how it looks like it makes me want to be rich.
Oh yeah. It's like he's like, run, rebel, but you will never defeat the forces of Voltar. And Alexis is like, death to Voltar, death to the Voltarians. And like, don't you think that Voltar kind of sounds like Voltaire, which is like the name of a writer?
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually it does.
Coincidence?
I think not.
And then immediately Castle's mom comes out and she's like, have you seen my purse? And she's like in a face mask and everything. And he's like, Mom, we are totally doing battle on the field of honor.
Oh my god.
And then Alexis shoots him and he's like, Mom, now Voltar will never rule the Omniverse. And she's like, oh well.
And then the doorbell rings and
someone order food?
Yeah. Because it's like, did someone order food? And he goes and he answers the door.
He's like, I better check this out. And he brings his gun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I love this part because like you see Kate. It's actually Kate at the door. And she basically just wanted help for the case. So she comes over to Castle to get his input on it. And she goes there with that in mind, and all she sees is Alexis and Castle in their like laser tag outfit, which is really cool, but I could imagine for Kate it's just like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. He like opens the door and he shoots at her and he's like, she's just like standing there like, hi. And he's like, oh, hi. And then his mother comes over and says, oh darling, are we entertaining? And she's like in a face mask. And Alexis is like, who is it?
Alexis is like the only, like she's like trying to be, I think Alexis is the one who kind of like maintains the normality of the situation, and she's like, Dad, manners. And he was like, oh, please do come in.
Can I make you a drink? I am a normal family man. And then Kate walks in and she like sees the house. She's like, holy shit, look at this place.
I would say like also in this scene you see both sides of Alexis as well, like the mature version, which is like when Kate answers the door, and then like before that her playing with her dad like with laser tag, that's like more of her age group kind of behavior. So
then Castle lets Kate into the house and they go to his office and she says to him, I don't know the answer. And he says, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't know how to prove that Sam did it.
Yeah, and Castle was like saying like you have the killer, which is Sam.
You
and
have the ending.
the ending, yeah. And then all you need is like the story.
You just have to write the rest. And that was like
Yeah.
what he was doing earlier on and stuff. He was saying if you have an ending, you can write the rest of the story.
So I like this little
Scene of them together
too. Yeah, because he kind of like uses his like methods for when he writes. So he says, oh, you know, when I'm like stumped on like any of the cases that I'm writing or something like that, he would like he would try to put himself into the killer's shoes, and he would like visit the crime scene, yeah, the scene of the crime.
And then he's like, oh man, and this was right after Sleepless in Seattle came out. All these women thought I was their Tom Cruise. I got laid. And then Kate's like, Castle,
back on track.
Back on
Castle.
Track. So he says to her, we have to use the facts at hand. And Kate's like, the facts? And he's like, facts. They had 2 small children. So based on that, they didn't have a babysitter. So with the husband at work, she would have been at home the day she disappeared. But Sam says she left later that night, but the doorman can't corroborate that. So she was there and she never left. So she was murdered in the apartment. And another fact is he lived in Manhattan. So like most people, he wouldn't own a car. So what is he going to do with the body? He can't leave it in the apartment and he can't walk out in the lobby with it. So how did he get the body into the storage unit? And they're like, he could have, So that's when Castle says, well, what I do is I go and I walk the crime scene if I want to get into my character's mind. So they go back to the apartment and Roger's there.
Oh my gosh. This is like another scene. Like I think this is the most I've seen like a very like small like sidelines character, because he wasn't even like, he wasn't a suspect, he wasn't anything. He was just like the person that that could potentially be Samuel, but he wasn't. And he just moved into the same apartment. But anyways, he got a lot of screen time. More than Kevin for sure.
Poor Kevin. Outshined by a tiny Jewish man. They told me he was shot in a mugging, and now you're telling me he was killed in my apartment? And Kate's like, not him, his wife. And then Roger says, his wife? What kind of family was this? And then Castle looks at Kate and he's like, so pretend you and I are married. And then Kate's like, we are not married. And Castle's like, relax, just pretend. And she's like, I don't want to pretend.
I'm like, and then Roger is like, are you guys always like this? And they're like, yeah.
He's like, well, Castle says, scared you'll like it. And then Kate's like, okay, if we're married, I want a divorce.
Yeah. It was so funny.
Yeah, so it's like, so we're married, but they were. So let's say the doorman's right and Melanie gets home at 4. She'd have to make dinner. Sam comes home at around 6 because banker's hours. So basically they're theorizing what could have happened. So Kate's like, so they're watching TV in the bedroom, and Roger's like, in my bedroom? And Castle's like, shh, we're on a roll. And so they go to the bedroom, and then Castle and Kate theorize they have a fight about the affair, about how she always goes to Philadelphia. And then so she turns around, he hits her with something, a pot or a pan.
Kate has a little pot, a tiny little one, and then Castle has like a huge pan, and they're like, and Kate is like, we'll go with the pan.
So then he has to get rid of the body, but the kids are still in the bedroom. So how does he get her? What does he do with the body? So he uses the hallway bathroom to hide her, right? So he puts her in the bathtub, and then they slam the door on Roger, who's trying to come in.
Oh my gosh. That poor man.
He's like, wait, guys, wait. And so he tells the kids that mom went to the store. So then he has no car. How does he get the body out of the apartment? And then Roger opens the door and he's like, maybe he hailed a cab.
Oh my gosh. Well, it wasn't a cab per se, but they're trying to figure out how the body came like from the bathtub to the lobby, right? Then Roger mentioned something about like
well, they say the doorman would have noticed something, like if he hailed a cab. So then they
Mhm.
realize the body would have to have already been in the freezer, like to get it past the doorman, right? Roger says freezer. He wouldn't have needed a cab. He would have needed a truck.
Yeah. And then they were saying for big deliveries, they would have needed to sign something. Like in Castle was saying in my apartment, like you would need to sign something. And that's when Roger was actually really helpful, and he was like, we have a general ledger for the doorman downstairs as well. So they go to see the general ledger, and yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
I don't know. They see
the way you said that. So they go to see the general ledger, and yeehaw.
they have.
Yo ho ho. Are you
I
okay?
was thinking of a different word, but then yeehaw came in my mind.
How
I don't
did
know.
yeehaw happen? Oh my god. They go downstairs to look at the ledger, and somebody did receive a delivery on that day, and it was Mrs. Marsh, who is the next door neighbor to Sam.
Yes, so they go to see Mrs. Marsh's apartment. It's like this really old lady.
The world's oldest woman.
Yeah, and she's still somehow she's still somehow pretty. Like she has like
That is so shady the way you said that. She's still somehow pretty.
no, because a lot of older people, like you can like you just see a lot of like wrinkles and stuff.
Dude.
But she's beautiful. Dun dun dun.
I can't wait to say this to you when you get old.
She's beautiful. I wish. I hope so.
No, to be really shady, like, wow, dude, you're actually beautiful.
Yeah, do it. I will take it. I'll be so old, I wouldn't even care.
Oh my god. So anyhow, like Mrs. Marsh is like really annoyed. She's like, I've already explained this to another officer before, and Kate, she assumes that this officer was Officer Sloan that she was talking to. And so Mrs. Marsh explains, like, while she gets this call for a delivery, so she goes downstairs to explain to the doorman that it's not her, she didn't order a freezer. And then while she's explaining it to the doorman, the delivery guy loaded it up and brought the freezer upstairs. But when she came upstairs, the guy was gone, and so was the freezer.
Yeah.
And so Castle and Kate are kind of leaving. They have this information now, and they know that there was a freezer delivery to the apartment. Castle looks at Kate and is like, so if you wanted help, like moving a body or moving something, who would you have called? And it's like, my best friend. So then they go back to see Charles Weiler again.
This is like the third time that he lied or something. Like he keeps lying so much in this case. And they have to keep going back to him over and over and over and be like, oh, you lied about this. Oh, you lied about that. Okay. What's going on?
So
anyways.
They trace the rental truck to his company, because Charlie Weiler owns a rental truck company, basically. So they bring him in, and then he's still like, I didn't do it. And it's like, why? What do you mean? You lied about everything else. You probably lied about this. We can trace the truck to you. You had something to do with this. And he's like, I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't have any reason to hurt her. And then Kate says, but Sam did, right? And then Castle's like, I mean, she kept going back to her ex-boyfriend. How much can a guy take? And then it's like, finally he breaks down and he's like, okay, fine. He called me that night and he needed me to come over right away.
So basically, because they were friends, like he wanted to help him out, despite the fact that he just murdered someone.
Like, I wouldn't ask you to help me out if I murdered somebody. I'd just be like, I think I have to do this myself. Charles says, like, he helped him because he knew that Sam made a mistake. Because Castle says, well, why didn't he just get a divorce? And Charles is like, don't you think I know how this looks? I was helping him because he made a mistake and I didn't want Sam to lose custody of the kids. And it's like, what are you talking about? He murdered somebody. He murdered his wife, and you don't want him to lose custody of the kids?
Like, honestly, okay, if I was in his position, I would be scared for the kids too. You just murdered your wife. What's stopping you from murdering your kids too at some point? Because you have all this rage, right? That made you do this thing. So who knows, like, if you're going to do it to someone else.
So he admits that he used the truck to deliver the freezer and that he sent it up to Mrs. Marsh, like pretending it was hers. And then while she was dealing with the doorman, he brought it upstairs to Sam. They loaded the body into the freezer and then brought it back downstairs. And then they delivered it to the storage room, and he helped him rent the storage room, and he was paying for it on Sam's behalf. Like Sam gave him the money, and he'd go twice every year and just pay for it. And then he stopped paying when Sam died. He's like, look, I'm truly sorry what happened to Melanie, but like, what do you want me to do? I can't keep paying for the rest of my life. And then Kate says, well, Mr. Weiler, the DA will make sure of that, that you will keep paying. And then you could see it on his face. He's like, oh, fuck.
And the funny thing is, the moment he stopped paying, that's when this whole thing, like, that's when they found the body, right? So that's when they realized that there was a murder that happened, and they started working on the case. That's when they had the case, really.
Yeah, so like his selfish act revealed the truth. I think that's what Kevin says, or something like that.
Yeah.
So Castle and Kate are back at the office, and Kate says she has to go and visit Mel's parents to let them know what happened, basically. And then Castle's sitting there, and he's like, isn't it weird that Detective Sloan questioned Mrs. Marsh about the freezer if it wasn't in his report? And Kate says,
because he wasn't thinking about murder at all on his part. He was just thinking about a missing body. He wouldn't go to question Mrs. Marsh at that time.
So Kate says, like, Kate's still like in her mode of like, she hates Detective Sloan. She's like, he probably didn't include her because he didn't believe he was looking at a murder. Like, he was still looking in his box and things like that. And then it's like, well, then why even interview her in the first place? And
they're like, wait a second. And they go back to Mrs. Marsh. Like they like all of a sudden they were like on this like impulsive kind of motion weird. Again. Like
something's a little fucky here.
Sometimes like in any of these episodes, really, like in Castle, what happens is that they have this like gut feeling. And this is one of those moments because they knew something was off, and they knew that they needed to do a little bit more digging. So they all of a sudden they like stop and they go to see Mrs. Marsh again. And they asked her like, can you describe like the cop that came in? And she was saying like he was just in regular outfit, just like you.
Kate says, look, I know it's been 5 years. And she's like, it wasn't 5 years. Because like before, Kate was saying to her when they interviewed her the first time, Kate was saying, I know it's been 5 years, but can you tell me, like, can you describe what happened? And now they're back again. And she's like, I know it's been 5 years, but I need you to describe this police officer. And she's like, oh, it wasn't 5 years. Oh, well, when was it then? Oh, it was just a year ago. So then who was it? And then she describes the guy. No, like you said, he wasn't in a uniform. He was in plain clothes, and he had a limp.
And he was like an older man.
And
they immediately knew who it was. And it was Melanie's dad, basically. Because he's the only one that they like see that is actually fits the exact description. And has the motive as well. They realized he had the motive to kill Sam.
Yeah, because one of the reasons they went there on impulse was because they had Mel's killer, Sam, but it's like, well, who killed Sam? It's supposed to be like a robbery, but like it's a bit weird, right? Something's weird about it. So they decide that they need to bring Mr. Davidson in. So they go to see him, and Castle and Kate are sitting outside of the house, and they're looking in at the family, and it's like a really happy family. It's the two girls, and it's their grandmother and their grandfather, and they're just living together. And Castle says, do you really want to ruin their happiness? And then Kate says the difference between a novel and the real world is a cop doesn't get to decide how the story ends. And
you can tell even her, like, she doesn't want to do this, but she feels like it's her job to, her duty to. So she goes, she knocks on the door, and it's very, like, I don't know, the music and the scene, it was, like, so mellow, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, you can see the girls come in, and she, like, the two girls, and they're, like, watching her, and she has to be like, I'm taking your grandfather down to be questioned.
And possibly, like,
arrested.
Arrest him, yeah. She knocks on the door, and she tells him right away, like, sir, we need to bring you in. And you could tell from his eyes, he was like, okay, now you know, basically.
Yeah, you know. But this scene is a bit weird, like this last scene. it's very ambiguous because they bring him down and he's like, so I'm here because I questioned Mrs. Marsh about a freezer. And Castle says, not any freezer, Mr. Davidson, the freezer.
Yeah.
So he's like, let's assume what you say is true. What's the charge? And Kate says, if Mrs. Marsh's answer led to Sam's death, then the charge will be murder. And then he gets this really dark look on his face and he says, I kept going over everything Sam said and everything he said happened that night. And I think I came to the same conclusion that you two did, that Melanie couldn't have left that apartment alive. So that's why he went to question Mrs. Marsh, because he wanted answers, because Detective Sloan gave him none.
So basically, because Detective Sloan didn't really do his job properly and he was just slacking, like he just came to a conclusion without looking really looking at the case and looking at all the details behind just the plain facts that was given to him. Because he did his job so sloppy. He took it amongst himself basically to go and investigate because it's his daughter, right? He got really emotional at this point. And honestly, like it was such like a heartbreaking story the way that he told it, because he was like, she was my only child. I had no information. I knew something was wrong and no one could tell me. And I could feel his pain at that point because he really loved his daughter, and you can tell that he loves his grandchildren, but they remind him of his dead daughter too.
Like he said, Sam would come and visit with the kids, and every time they left, he would feel like this emptiness. And he's like, a visit from your grandchildren should be life affirming. It shouldn't make you feel terrible all the time. And then Kate and Castle say, well, why not just go to the police? He would have gone to prison. And Mr. Davidson said, if he had been convicted, there wasn't a body. His lawyers wouldn't have put him on trial. They would have put Melanie on trial because she's the drug user.
Yeah.
And then Kate says, so you took matters into your own hands. And this is the sentence right here where it's like, well, you could certainly understand how a father might want to. And then he says he might want to follow his daughter's murderer. And then one dark night when there's nobody around, he might confront him with a gun he brought back from the war. He might even promise forgiveness in exchange for the truth. And hearing his admission and being overcome with rage, he could maybe have shot him.
Yeah.
And then Kate says, killing him wasn't the answer. And he says, I never said I killed him. I said a father might be justified. The police told me Sam was shot in a robbery. And without evidence, there's little chance that his killer will ever be brought to justice. And then he asks for a lawyer.
Yep.
And that's
so
it.
He basically like admits without officially like confessing.
You think he admits? I don't think he admits it. I think he's just saying that it's something he could have done. I think it's like a scenario that went through his head, like because you could see like earlier in the episode he gets really angry at the mention of like the case and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a scenario he went over in his head, like, oh man, I want to kill that guy. And then when he does get killed, it's like a bit of a relief, I think.
So if that's happened, if he didn't kill him, then who would have been the killer?
They said that it was just, he said it was written down as a random robbery. Like his murder basically, Sam's murder basically got the same treatment as Mel's murder. Like it's just like he was shot outside of a convenience store one night, so maybe he was just shot and robbed basically. Nobody's looked anywhere any deeper into that. That's what Castle and Kate are doing. They're looking deeper into it basically.
Yeah, to get all the details and actually come to a conclusion.
But maybe there is no deeper for this one. Maybe it's just what you see. You know what I mean? So
but at least like they did their due diligence and they looked over all the facts and they can actually be satisfied with the results of the case versus they did find like Melanie's killer though. They knew it was Sam's, so at least like that was like the main case, to be honest. Even
but maybe like they'll probably, the reason he asked for a lawyer is they'll probably put him on trial for it also. Like they'll probably try to like pin the murder of Sam on him, but I don't think he could be convicted at all. It can't be proven unless they find some sort of link, but I don't think they might want to.
Yeah.
Or they can, basically. And then, like, this final scenario is Castle and Kate are, like, it's after they figured out the case. It's after the questioning.
They're at the
Castle,
precinct.
yeah, they're at the precinct, and Castle comes over and he kind of sits down next to Kate, and she says, "By the way, it was my mother, not my father. We were supposed to go to dinner together. My mom was supposed to meet my dad and I at the restaurant, but she never showed up. And then when we went home, there was a detective waiting for us. And you could tell, like, she's really, like, emotional about this case because she even remembers the detective's name. His name was Detective Raglan. And she's like, they found her body and he had been stabbed. And Castle asks if it was a robbery. She said no. She still had her money, she still had her purse and jewelry, and it wasn't.
She said they labeled it as like gang violence. And like she didn't have anything stolen from her, and it was similar to Melanie's case because they couldn't think behind the box.
Outside of the box, dude, not behind it.
Oh my god, I think I said behind the box earlier too.
Out of the box. Out
Yeah,
of
they
the box.
couldn't.
Do you remember that show?
No.
Okay, fine. I'll send it to you later.
Okay. Yeah, they couldn't think outside the box, and and they just labeled it as like whatever they saw.
So the killer never got caught.
The killer had never got caught. So it's still kind of like an open case. And yeah, she gets really emotional because it's her mother, right? And
she
never got her like what do you call that? Like
solution.
Her solution. Looking for like
she never got an
term.
ending.
She's probably still like unsettled about the whole thing because she doesn't know what happened, right?
I think like they show the picture at the beginning from Kate Kate opening the box. That was her dad and that was her mom. And I think like when her mom kind of looks like Melanie, so like I think when she sees Melanie, she saw her mom basically. So that's why she was so like, she really wanted to solve this case. She really wanted to give those girls and their family the answer as to what really happened.
Yeah, I think that's because I think in this case, as compared to like the previous cases in the episodes, I think she really like outdid herself on this one because
this was more personal.
It was more personal for her, and she got really emotional when like things didn't work out in favor of Melanie. Like for those people who didn't come forward, she was very
angry.
Angry at them.
And I think like every time she saw those little girls, she kind of thought of herself. She's in another person's shoes now. She's not in those little girls' shoes anymore. She's in the detective's shoes. She's the detective coming to tell them, we need to take your grandfather away. We need to question your grandfather. We need to tell you about your mom. Your mom's dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is kind of sad, actually.
And so then she says to Castle, I wear the watch because my dad took my mom's death really hard and he's sober now for 5 years. So I wear the watch for the life that I saved, and I wear this ring on a necklace on my neck for the life that I lost.
Yeah, which is her mom. And then I think it's really, I don't know. It's
really somber. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But then we end on a bit of a light note. She's like, so I guess Nikki Heat has a backstory now, Castle. And he says, I don't know. I kind of like the hooker by day, cop by night thing. And then he's like, but you know, I guess a heavy emotional angle could work too. And then Kate's like, don't bewilder your audiences with substance on my account, Castle.
This one, like, at this point, like, I think because of Castle's, like, you know, lighthearted words, she was kind of a little bit uplifted in a sort of way, because the whole series, like the whole show, the whole episode, she was like taking it really seriously and everything, and then she just kind of spilled her guts to Castle.
It's interesting now because she kind of trusts him. And did you realize, like, earlier in the episode when she was questioning Elizabeth Forte, she didn't call him Castle or this is Richard Castle. She says this is Rick Castle.
Oh.
Yeah. Because normally when she brings him into the questioning room, she says, this is Richard Castle. This is Mr. Castle. But then all of a sudden she was like, this is Rick Castle. And I was like, ooh, we're calling him Rick now? But then Castle says, until tomorrow, detective. And then she says, can't you just say night? And he's like, I'm a writer. Night is boring. Until tomorrow sounds more hopeful.
Hopeful.
And
Yeah.
she's like, well, I'm a cop. Night.
She's like, short and sweet, night.
Mm-hmm. And I think she's trying to imply that, you know, maybe tomorrow won't be so hopeful.
Because I think she's relating it to her mom's case as well at that point, because I'm sure she's like looked into it and she's kind of given up hope, right?
And then like the world's second saddest song plays, but I can't remember the lyrics to this one. And we see Kate taking off like the jewelry and stuff, her dad's watch, her mom's necklace.
Yeah.
And then we see Castle and Esposito going to like this room with like all these case files. And Esposito says, if you tell her I did this, I will make you bleed. And Castle's like, understood. And then he brings this file over to a desk. He turns on a light. And then we see that the title of the file is Joanna Beckett. And he's opening it to like read through the case.
Yeah, and he's just like he's kind of like going through the pages and inspecting it almost. You can tell he by his gaze, like looking over each and every page, that he's going to start looking into Beckett's mother's case.
I thought of it more as like he's starting to feel more emotionally connected to Beckett. So he wants to learn more about her and how her mother died and stuff like that. So he's looking through the case. And maybe, I don't know if he's thinking he can solve it, but, you know, I think that maybe he wants to know a little bit more. He wants to understand her more.
Yeah, that's also like, I think that's also a part of it as well. Because he feels a little bit, you can tell both of them, like they're starting to feel more connected with each other. And
more comfortable too.
Yeah, I mean, like their connection has always been like I mean, it hasn't been good, but like from the beginning they connected well, even though Beckett was like not too fond of him. Like they still had connection, and they still do, but they're more comfortable, they're like more open to each other. So this is the first time that Beckett actually like told him about her like personal life, right? So now he wants to like learn more and like possibly like find a way to help her as well. Yeah.
So that's the end of the episode. It's very bit of an ambiguous ending. Yeah. So what would you rate this episode, Doomond?
I would rate it an 8.5.
I give it a 9. I liked it a lot. I think it's like my favorite one so far.
Because I know what's going to happen soon.
Okay. Because I can see the futura.
And maybe, I'm not sure, like because this is not my first time watching it, even like this week or last week or whatever. Like I've watched it like 2 or 3 times like fully before, even though it was like a little while ago. So it could be that the first time that I watched it, it was a higher score. I'm not sure, but at this time I would give it an 8.5.
You're so shady today.
Wink, wink.
Oh my god. Jesus. Anyhow, do you have anything else? Like, you have any questions or anything that you want to ask moi?
Okay, since I already know what's gonna happen,
sure.
What anything that you have a feeling might happen or something? Just one thing.
I feel like we're gonna figure out who Beckett's, like, the killer is behind Beckett's mother. I feel like that's gonna come back. Like, I feel like it's gonna become like a part of the story somehow. Like maybe that person kills somebody else and they kind of inadvertently find out who it is. I also feel like Beckett and Castle will bone at some point.
I'm sorry. I am not supposed to reveal that.
What do you mean? It's so obvious. It's like when they had that show Bones on or whatever. It was so obvious that Bones would bone the man.
Oh my gosh.
What? It's true.
Have you watched Bones?
No.
Okay. I have it on my list of things to watch. But I've never watched it.
I
It's been a
I heard a baby happens at some point. Spoilers,
Oh.
a baby happens and then it gets bad because there's a baby.
while. Oh. Does it just cry in between the scenes or something?
No, I don't even know. It's called Bones. Maybe the baby has no bones. I don't know. The jelly baby. Okay.
That's weird. What are we talking about anymore?
I'm really sleepy and I haven't eaten yet. I'm really hungry also and I have to pee.
Oh, great. I think I will have to pee too at some point.
A bit of an overshare, but I do have to pee. I've just been wiggling around in my seat for this past half hour because
I'm in Luna's room and I'm cold.
Why are you in Luna's room?
Because that's where my laptop is.
Oh, you mean
And
your
my
living
mic?
room?
Yeah. Luna's room.
I thought you meant the other room where you stick Luna sometimes.
Oh, I stuck her there, but I'm in, I'm in the
Oh my
living
god, the poor cat. Okay,
I'm going back to Luna.
Let's finish this up very quickly then. Where can people find you, Doob?
So my personal Instagram is at DevaStars4.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a food blog on Instagram as well, filled with food photos and stuff. And that's at t.foodlove, TDOT, food love.
Mm-hmm. And my Instagram is Trisha Does Nothing. Both our Instagrams are private, by the way. So if you want to follow them, it's fine. We'll probably approve you unless you look weird.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I think a good thing would be if you want to follow us, you could just DM us Shownanigans, and we'd be like, ooh, okay, you're it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. And also I have a secondary YouTube channel where I make YouTube videos about stuff and things, and that is called Alex Does Nothing. All links will be in the description.
So basically, Tube, you're saying you do nothing on both channels.
I don't do anything. I don't do anything on Insta. I don't do anything on YouTube, except I do. But please, I make very good videos. Please watch them. But yes,
she does.
I work very hard. The last one was about books.
Books.
But yes, all links in the description. Please like and favorite and subscribe because it helps us. I know every YouTuber says that, but it does. And we're
just starting, guys. We have nothing.
We have nothing.
We have you guys.
We have the 5 people who watch this.
Yes.
Okay. Unless you want to do some ASMR, Doob.
Do I? Okay. What should I do? Oh, I will do it on the biscotti. Okay. Here I go.
Okay. That was bye.
Bye.
Bye.